Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This one is on uncertainty and embracing uncertainty and using it as a tool instead of as something to be afraid of. And I record this video on the cusp of a big decision in my life, multiple big decisions, and some of them are kind of too personal for me to share, but one of the big ones is moving out into an apartment building, and it's a beautiful spot, and it's like my dream apartment. It really is my dream apartment. The rent floats around $2,000 a month, and I'm getting a decent deal off of them. It's in a great area. The only problem is you have to park on the street, so I might get a different car just so I can have a car that is on the street that I'm not afraid of having on the street. So we'll see. But I am uncertain. Let me start off with that. I don't have 100% of my life figured out, and nobody does though. And here's the thing, before you view me as weaker or lesser for having said that, I want you to really think about any time in your life, anytime, give me one time in your life where you have felt truly certain, where you have felt truly 100% sure of a decision that you've made. Nobody ever is, and it never will happen. And what's interesting is I've found that a lot of the best periods of growth that I've experienced in my business have come from times, or in my life, have come from times where I have embraced the uncertainty and embraced the craziness and the chaos. And a good example of this could be about 2 years ago today. My family and I went through a house fire, which pretty much demolished my house. And really at the time, it kind of felt like, my entire future was like on hold, okay? So imagine, having grown up in a place for 17 years, so I'm 19 now, for 17 years, you grow up in a house and you're used to it, it's home, you have things and memories and they're all just gone pretty much in about a half hour, 45-minute period. And you have to figure out what the heck do you do next. And luckily I had a family and we've been through a lot together, and so not all the pressure was on me, but the pressure, which was a lot of pressure, was spread pretty much evenly throughout every individual in my family in that moment to figure out what the heck we're supposed to do. And nobody really had any wrong ideas, but none of the ideas felt right either. Like, do we move here? Do we live here? What do we do about the objects and the things in the house? Do we go back in and get them? There's no guidance there, right? And for those of you who have been in a situation similar to that, you know what I'm talking about, that uncertainty. But what's crazy is when a big shock to your system happens like that, when uncertainty hits, it forces you to act on your toes. It forces you to use your brain. It forces you to think quick and start making moves, right? Stop thinking and start doing. Stop overthinking, stop over contemplating, stop assuming the worst, and start making decisions and making moves that actually lead to an outcome. Whether the outcome is good or bad, you don't know yet, but it's time to experiment and get to work and figure it out, right? And so, I said at the beginning of this video, I don't have things figured out, right? Because I don't, and nobody does. And no matter who you run into that you're learning from, if they're online, they're painting a picture, and I paint a picture. And I do. Everybody does. And I want you to be okay with the uncertainty, especially because my audience is all entrepreneurs. Be okay with the uncertainty of running your own business. Because it sucks sometimes. Because you don't know sometimes where the next check is coming from. Now, am I in a place now better financially than I was a year ago? Yes, absolutely. Things are incredible. But just because money is present does not make certainty present. Because my goal is not just money. My goal is much more grand than that, right? And there's things in my life that I want that I don't have yet, and I'm not sure how to get there. And, right now, let's say it's $10,000 profit easier now than it was a year ago. Yes, absolutely. I've done it multiple times over, and it's a lot of fun. Every time it happens, it's a blast, okay? But that's still not certainty. What's interesting is even at a high level, and I've spoke to some incredible people who do 7 figures yearly, multiple 7 figures even, and even at their level, there is no certainty. So if you're chasing certainty and you're chasing stability, stop and think for just a moment. What do you actually get from that stability? Well, for me, I get comfort. And why am I pursuing comfort if the lack of comfort is what makes me grow? If being uncomfortable is what forces me to change and to mature and to adapt, why is it that I seem to be working for comfort? It's an interesting thing. And it forces you to kind of reassess why you're doing what you're doing. So why am I doing what I'm doing? Well, a year ago I might have said it's so that I can live a comfortable life, be financially free, these sorts of things. But now what I realize it's far deeper than finances. And finances are a deep thing. I believe, money to be a spiritual thing. And I have biblical backing for that. But what I believe it to be is my ability to look at my life and say, I did well with the resources and options that were given to me. And I'm proud of how I handled each and every moment. And included in that statement is how I handle my finances and how I handle business. And it's a big part of it because friggin' it decides a lot of your life, right? So what am I trying to say? Well, what I'm trying to say is a couple things. First of all, uncertainty is a given. You're going to be spending a lot of time uncertain, unsure about where you're going, or unsure about the outcome. But we have to change the script from that statement kind of having a negative connotation to it to having a very positive, very motivating connotation. Because it's in that uncertainty and it's in that state of change where the greatest things happen to anybody and everybody. And we look even at economies. For example, let's look at some areas in California that get hit with earthquakes often, or maybe some areas in Florida that get hit with hurricanes, or maybe, in South America we have lots of different hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever. Like, you look at places that 5 years ago went through some sort of horrible natural disaster. Now they're killing it. 80% of the time they come out better. The other 20% of the time it's because they consciously chose not to, because it's easier. But 80% of the time they come out better. And the reason for this is simple. Because when a system is forced to break itself apart, it gives it time to rethink how it was put together in the first place. Because when a system is always running and always being used, you can't work on a machine that's in function. But you can work on a machine that's exploded and all the pieces are lying everywhere. And you can say, well, why was this piece here and not here? Oh, well, this is just do that. That's way better, actually. And wait, why are we using this kind of a belt instead of this kind of a belt? Let's use this kind. Let's chuck the old one. And why is this piece copper and not iron? Let's use copper because it's better at conducting heat, or whatever. There's all kinds of things where you can look at a broken thing and assess it. So what I want to encourage my audience to do, because I've noticed this trend in a lot of people, especially in students in my course even, people who have invested a good amount of money to learn from me. And they're still seeking that certainty, they're still seeking that comfort. I want my audience to be a group of young people or old people, I don't care, but people who are obsessed with pursuing discomfort, because that's where growth happens. And I'm almost speaking to myself, because let's be honest, 6 figures and I'm still living with my parents. What the heck? Why are you doing that? Well, very transparent, I don't like the idea of living away from these people because I've grown up with them. I love them dearly. But if I want things to change and I want to grow, I kind of have to make that step. And I feel like until I do, I'll just keep plateauing. That's just the reality. It's the reality of where I'm at, right? That's just how it is. And I have to accept that reality in order to continue to grow. And I've been asked that question a lot of times. People are like, why do you still live with your parents if you're doing 6 figures? And what's interesting is that people actually doubt, my business. They doubt, they're like, there's no way this dude's actually making any money. He still lives in his freaking bedroom. And I literally get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But the problem is, it's comfortable. The problem is, it's easy. The problem is, why leave? Emotionally, it makes more sense to stay. But logically, and long term, it makes a lot more sense to leave, right? And for you, you may be facing the same sort of a struggle. And it's interesting, even saying that, my brain doesn't believe it. My brain wants me to be like, well, but what about this? So you need to find that next big step you need to take. What's the next big thing for you? What's the next leap that once taken, the outcome is kind of uncertain. And we're not exactly sure what life looks like once that step is taken. You need to identify that and take it now. Like this week, do it. And then you'll thank me later. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, it may take 10 years even, depending on the situation. But by the end of that cycle, you'll have realized that really the big factor was your ability to be bold and take a chance and step into an environment that might not be comfortable. And even me stopping high school, I couldn't even tell you how much resentment I got and still get over having done that. That was a stupid move in a lot of people's eyes, and still is today. Even though I can, you know, even though I can literally just get online, spend about a week, and, you know, make more money than some people make in 6 months, you know? It's like, they don't get it, is in my mind. But what's interesting is that from their perspective, the money isn't what matters. They care about education. And then it's varying opinions on education, right? And so dropping out of high school, stopping that, very bold, but I needed to do it, right? There's all kinds of examples of this in my life. And what people don't realize, I had a student ask recently, they said, how do you move so fast? Like, how are you already at the level that you're at? And I gave him kind of just a bloated answer of like, oh, you just recognize the things that matter and only do the things that matter. And that's an important part. But really, I think what's more important than that, and what I'm realizing is more important than that, is taking risks. And is pushing yourself past and far beyond what you thought you were originally capable of. And seeing if you're capable of it. And the amazing thing is, if you're not, just retreat back to where you were, and that's okay. Spend a little more time getting ready again and go and try again. You know? It's that state of change, it's that state of battle, emotional battle, that we need to embrace and be ready for constantly. Otherwise, nothing happens. Because comfort kills. It literally kills. And not even like, literally kills. Because what it does is it forces you to only do what's necessary to survive. And that's it. And what's interesting is that when you only do what's necessary to survive in the moment, you sacrifice your ability to survive later. And it comes to this concept that I wrote down on my whiteboard actually, which is interesting, that ties into this video so well. Your P and PC balance. P is your ability to produce, or P is production, so you have P, which is production. PC is your ability to produce, or your production capacity or capability. Right? And so if you're only ever producing, you're sacrificing your production capacity or capability, right? So for example, you could look at a farmer, maybe like a corn farmer, right? If all they do is pick the corn and eat it on the spot, and they don't replant, all they're doing is producing, and they're not worrying about their production capability. And so with production capability, the corn farmer might think, okay, for every 100 stalks of corn I'm going to pluck, I'm going to take home 5, and only 5, and the rest of them are going to go back into my field to be planted. And then we're going to have more corn, and then we're going to plant more of that, and we're going to let that compound and multiply over time. And I'm only going to take a tiny piece, right? And I wrote down some examples of this. So for example, in business, production is money, and production capability is assets that actually drip you money, right? I wrote down maybe like fitness, energy, aesthetics, endurance. And PC is diet and working out, right? Relationships is validation, fellowship. PC is giving them validation, right? In order for you to get the validation that you want from others, you have to give it to others first. So this is an interesting thing for you to understand, and I hope this video makes sense. I hope this video resonates with you. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, but at the same time, I think it's a very valuable, very important video for people to understand that really, truly, you're never going to move you're never going to move further than the risks that you take. And that's just something you have to understand. You're never going to move further than your willingness to take leaps and to try things that might hurt you. Because if all you do is just do the things that are comfortable and easy, then you'll never change. And if that's what you're looking for, then you're not going to do anything. nothing good is going to come of you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it resonated with you. And I will see you in the next one.